What if Alzheimer's isn't really a disease of forgetting? What if it's a disease of an immune system that forgot how to turn itself off? Because that's what scientists at Scripps Research just found. Buried inside your brain, there's a protein with a name that sounds like a sci-fi villain. It's called STING. And in Alzheimer's patients, it appears to be jammed in the on position, quietly burning down the wiring that holds your memories together. Let me explain why this is such a big deal. Because it rewires how you should think about your own brain. For decades, the story you were told about Alzheimer's went something like this. Plaques build up, tangles form, neurons die, memory fades, sad ending, no real cure. But there's been a quieter storyline running underneath that one. Inflammation. Your brain has its own immune system made up of tiny cells called microglia. These are the janitors. They clean up debris, fight infections, prune connections you don't need. When they work right, they keep your mind sharp. When they don't, they start eating the wrong things. And here's where it gets unsettling. The Scripps team zeroed in on STING, a protein that acts like an alarm bell inside those immune cells. Normally, STING fires when there's a real threat, sounds the alarm, then shuts back down. Fire, alarm, response, silence. That's the healthy loop. But in Alzheimer's brains, that off switch breaks. The researchers discovered that STING gets chemically altered. A small modification latches onto it and keeps the alarm ringing forever. Imagine a smoke detector that won't stop screaming even after the toast is out of the toaster. Your microglia hear that endless siren and stay locked in attack mode. And what do they attack? The synapses. The delicate little bridges between your neurons, the exact structures your memories are built on. So picture it. Your brain's defenders, the cells that are supposed to protect your thoughts, start chewing through the cables that hold your thoughts together. Not because they're broken, because nobody told them the emergency is over. That's the hidden switch. And here's the part that should make you sit up. This isn't just another correlation in a sea of Alzheimer's correlations. The researchers are pointing at a specific chemical change on a specific protein in a specific pathway. That's the kind of detailed drug developers dream about. Because if you can identify the exact modification keeping STING stuck, you can potentially design something that flips it back off. Not clear the plaques, not untangle the tangles, just quiet the alarm. Now, why does your brain even have a setup this fragile in the first place? Why would evolution build an immune system that can betray you like this? The honest answer is that STING is incredibly useful. It's one of your body's frontline defenses against viruses and stray DNA floating where it shouldn't be. Without it, you'd be wide open to infections. The system isn't a bug, it's a feature that, over decades, in the wrong conditions, gets stuck. And that's the deeper psychological reframe hiding inside this story. So much of what goes wrong in your body and your mind isn't some foreign invader. It's your own protective systems running too long. Stress hormones that saved your ancestors from predators now grind down your heart. Anxiety circuits that kept you alive in the wild now spiral at 3 in the morning over an email. Immune cells that fight off real threats end up turning on the very tissues they were built to defend. Your brain, in other words, can be wrecked by its own bodyguards, and you don't notice it happening. That's the cruelest part. There's no symptom that says your microglia have been screaming for 15 years. By the time memories start slipping, by the time names get fuzzy and routines feel strange, the fire has been burning quietly for a very long time, which raises an uncomfortable question. How much of who you are, your sharpness, your recall, your ability to find the right word at dinner, depends on tiny molecular switches you've never heard of, doing their job in silence? The answer apparently is a lot, but here's what makes this finding hopeful instead of just terrifying. A switch that can be stuck can also be unstuck. That's the whole logic of modern medicine. You don't have to rebuild the brain, you just have to find the off button that was always there. The Scripps researchers haven't delivered a drug yet. Let's be honest about that. What they've delivered is a target, a bullseye, a very specific molecular event that other labs can now race to interrupt. In the world of Alzheimer's research, where so many promising leads have collapsed, having a clear mechanism is gold, and it shifts the entire conversation. For years, the field has been locked in a war over plaques. Are they the cause? Are they a symptom? Does removing them help? The plaque story has produced disappointment after disappointment. But the inflammation story, the idea that the real damage comes from your own immune cells stuck on high alert, keeps getting stronger. This new finding pours fuel on that fire. So what should you actually do with this information? You're not going to walk into your doctor's office tomorrow and ask for a STING inhibitor. That's years away, if it happens at all. But you can change how you think about your brain. Because here's the thing about chronic inflammation. It's not just a brain problem. Poor sleep cranks it up. Chronic stress cranks it up. A diet full of ultra-processed food cranks it up. Loneliness, believe it or not, cranks it up. All those everyday things you brush off as no big deal are nudging your immune system toward the same overdrive state that, in the worst case, may help fuel diseases like Alzheimer's. You can't manually flip the STING switch, but you can stop pounding on the alarm button every day. That's the practical takeaway hiding inside a very technical discovery. Your brain isn't a fortress under siege from the outside. It's a careful balance of systems that need to fire and then fall silent. Fire and fall silent. The trouble starts when the silence never comes, and that has implications way beyond Alzheimer's. Think about how this same pattern shows up everywhere in psychology. Rumination is just a thought loop that won't shut off. Anxiety is a threat response that won't stand down. Trauma, in many models, is the nervous system stuck in a state it should have left behind. Over and over, the human mind seems to break not from too little response, but from too much. Held on for too long. Sting is the molecular version of that same story, a perfectly designed alarm that forgot how to stop. So the next time you hear someone talk about Alzheimer's as a mystery, remember this. It might not be a mystery of forgetting. It might be a mystery of remembering wrong. Of immune cells remembering a threat that ended years ago and acting on it every single day until the connections that make you start to fray. There's something almost poetic about that. A disease that erases memory, caused in part by cells that can't let go. And maybe that's the real lesson buried in this Scripps discovery. Your brain doesn't just need to fire, it needs to forgive. It needs to close the case, lower the alarm, and let the quiet return. When that quiet stops coming, you don't just lose peace. Eventually, you might lose yourself. The switch is there. Now someone just has to flip it back.